Hey guys, what's up? Dingo Crikey here with another Transformers movie topic. This one speculating on which characters could be the focus of their own spin-off films. So, right now it looks as though the writers board for the new Transformers films are interested in doing spin-off films that will spotlight certain characters. Other franchises such as Star Wars seem to be going in this direction, as there's a supposed Boba Fett spin-off film underway, and it's been par for the course for franchises under the Marvel or DC banner for years now, but it is something new for Transformers and almost sounds too good to be true. Still, it seems like a possibility, and while more accurate speculation would require fans knowing whether the films are going to take place in the current cinematic universe or a rebooted one, we can still start speculating on who they might be focused on. So what do we know about the topic right now? Obviously, it does seem to be a possibility. In particular, they hinted at making a Bumblebee spin-off film, but nothing's been confirmed. As mentioned, we don't know for sure if there is actually going to be a reboot, as many fans want, so it is better to assume the status quo that this is going to be in the Bayformers universe. In mentioning that they would be interested in writing a story about Bumblebee, they said something about writing about characters who are loved worldwide, or basically characters who can sell a lot of toys. So it's not as if we would have a spin-off film about a character such as Thundercracker. It's much more likely that would be based on someone such as Bumblebee or Optimus, whether that is a prequel or something that's taking place in the present time of the movies. So assuming this spin-off film would take place in the current universe, the spotlight film would probably focus on a character who is already established in the film universe. Bayformers' track record shows a tendency to basically put out what sells. So introducing a character, as mentioned earlier, like Thundercracker into the universe, who seems fairly interesting in the comics, but has done nothing in the movies, really wouldn't make sense. With saying that, we don't really have much of a selection. Put it this way, it's highly unlikely that this spin-off film would be some kind of backstory on a character who is already deceased in the films. They're already dead within the films. For most of them, like Ratchet, Ironhide, and Jazz, they kind of just had off-the-wall deaths, and not a whole lot of development, once again, in their movie versions, so it's not like an audience would really care to learn more about them. Plus, they're already dead, so yeah. You can't do much backstory, and you certainly can't do future plot lines with them. That really limits our selection, because more Transformers than not are probably dead within the film franchise. That leaves us with roughly Optimus, Hound, Bumblebee, Crosshairs, Drift, Brains, and Galvatron. Attinger did mention that there are several Decepticons loose, but obviously none of them are developed enough characters that they would really focus a film on. So out of the selection we have, I think we can knock off the three new characters, Hound, Crosshairs, and Drift. They all seem pretty cool from what we know of them, but they haven't been around long enough for us to really care to learn their backstory. Plus, there was no intrigue created within the film. I understand Drift has an interesting backstory in the comics, but he seems like he's a quite different character in the film, so I don't think those two would really come together. Brains obviously wouldn't get his own film, and there are some other Autobot characters such as Sideswipe and Dino who could possibly be alive. And though I think it would be really cool to, say, have a spin-off film focusing on Sideswipe, a little bit of the beginning of the movie, focusing on what happened to him between Dark of the Moon and Age of Extinction, and then the rest of the movie occurring in present time, I highly doubt we would actually get a film like that. I think it could work really well, even within the film universe, which a lot of us aren't really crazy about, but it's doubtful that they would do that, even if these characters are to return in Transformers 5. So that leaves us with Galvatron/Megatron, Optimus Prime, and Bumblebee. As far as Megatron Galvatron goes, he probably would have the most exciting backstory, especially if they followed the whole story with him being a gladiator, the caste system, him rising up against this, being a voice for freedom, but he kind of takes it too far, go into all of those aspects of his character. It could be a pretty interesting film. Personally, I don't think Galvatron or Megatron is the most interesting character because he just comes off as kind of bland, bad guy for the sake of it. But if they worked it right, they probably could get some more depth out of him, and nevertheless, it would be a very different movie. And if it was focusing on Megatron and the gladiating pits, and even once he's done with that, rising his rebellion, it would be a pretty action-packed movie and pretty brutal with Megatron as your main character, so definitely would be cool to see. But that raises the question, are they really going to make an entire movie about not only a bad guy, but the main bad guy? We're seeing that as more of a possibility with movies such as Suicide Squad, and Deadpool isn't the best guy in the world from what I understand, but Transformers character spin-off films already is a little bit of a stretch, so I doubt they would take it farther with Megatron being the focus. I think it's more likely that they would have a prequel story that focused on both Optimus and Megatron's backstory on Cybertron and kind of flip back and forth between the two of them, and obviously throw some other supporting characters in there, but those would be your two main characters. And I definitely think that could be pretty cool. So that brings us to Optimus. He definitely has that potential. Not only is he pretty much the most well-known Transformers character, but he showed interesting character development and story development in Age of Extinction, seeing him struggle with his ideals while also having the story of him going off into space. But I think it's more likely we would have those things concluded in Transformers 5, though it does seem to be setting up for a good standalone story. I think if we were going to get an Optimus-based story, it's more likely it would take place back on Cybertron. The only thing with this is, do we really want to see a movie that focuses entirely on Optimus Prime? I mean, most of us love Optimus, but is he really that much of an interesting character? He's just not all that relatable in any way, which isn't necessarily bad, considering Optimus is more of an image character than really someone you're supposed to relate to, though they kind of tried to change that up in Age of Extinction. Either way, I don't think we'd want a whole movie focusing on Optimus. Once again, I think this would be better if it was something that focused on Megatron and Optimus's backstory, going back to when Optimus was Orion Pax, so we can see that development into Optimus Prime. Hence, another reason why it would be nice to have a reboot, so we could see the young, inexperienced Orion Pax grow into the brave, heroic, and noble Optimus Prime, rather than an innocent archivist turn into some bloody murderer as he is in the films. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but he's really nasty in those movies. I mean, give me your face. Yeah. So that's what I would like to see them do as far as Optimus and Megatron, and I think it's possible. If they were going to do backstory on either of those characters, I would picture it in a format like that, focusing on both of them so you have a little bit more of a balance. Most possible character for a spin-off film, as he has already been stated, is of course Bumblebee. I mean, this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, though. I mean, you see Bumblebee literally everywhere Transformers is displayed, at least in the mainstream. I mean, he's kind of become the Tahu of Transformers. I mean, you do see Optimus displayed in places, but Bumblebee seems to be the guy who really sells, so it makes sense that they would want to make a film about Bumblebee. And I actually think that out of these three characters, Bumblebee may be the most interesting. Not only can they focus on both past and present timelines, but I think Bumblebee's personality can be a lot more interesting than the stoic Optimus Prime or the always evil Megatron. For one, Bumblebee really hasn't been developed too much in the films, so if they give him his voice, which he would definitely need if he was going to get a focus film, we could get a lot more character out of him, kind of like we're getting in Robots in Disguise. I would assume he'd have to also kind of develop as a character, as in Prime, we've seen he was kind of childish, but in Robots in Disguise he's kind of matured. I think some of that might be a flaw, as they probably should have made Smokescreen the commander in Robots in Disguise. Just my own opinion, it seemed like it would have fit the character more, but I think it's believable that without his voice, Bumblebee would have become kind of eccentric and coming off exaggerated in his actions, because he really doesn't have another form of communication. So if they were just to kind of do that with his character in the films once he got his voice repaired, I think it would make sense. Or if they were to do a prequel film, we could have it ending with Bumblebee losing his voice. I think that would also be kind of cool, but as far as Bumblebee goes, I'm more interested in something in the present timeline. Once again, it might be more likely that we would see that in Transformers 5 unless they kind of tell a story in between with the spin-off films. But as far as the current cinematic universe, I do think those are our big possibilities. A Megatron and Optimus prequel film, or a Bumblebee prequel film, or Bumblebee present time film. Could be any one of those. I don't think it would focus on some random new character or some character that's already deceased. Potentially a film on Sideswipe or something. I think that could be the coolest, but I'm highly doubtful that they would do that. Really, the only hope I have there is that they've been using Sideswipe's character a lot for other things in the franchise. Now, obviously, a lot of us do not want the spin-off films, so to speak, wasted on the current cinematic universe. A lot of us would like a reboot. If you want to hear more extensive thoughts on whether or not the spin-off films in general should occur in a rebooted universe, you could go to my channel and look up a video called "Should the Transformers spin-off films occur in a rebooted universe?" But obviously if they did, we'd have a plethora of characters to choose from for their own spin-off films. There would be a clean slate to work with, so these spin-off films focusing on specific characters could kind of let us know who the focus of this new film franchise would be, and also we would have a ton of characters such as Ironhide and Starscream who are deceased in the movies, who we could have as focus characters in the spin-off verse. So, from what we know of past Transformers series, who would be the best for their own film? Now, obviously, we have a ton of characters to choose from. So, outside of those three big characters, Optimus, Megatron, and Bumblebee, I think it's kind of hard to pick out who would be the focus of a film like this, even if it is occurring in a rebooted universe. I mean, there are some characters like the comic book version of Drift, which sounds like it would be really cool. I'm not sure how likely that would actually happen, because he does seem like kind of a darker character, so I'm not sure that they would go that direction. Windblade is a popular character right now, but I really don't think they would do a movie about her. Starscream is another character who has been in the spotlight for a lot of the franchise's history. If done right, I think a spin-off film based on Starscream could be really cool, and I think there is actually potential for it, because depending on the rendition of Starscream, he isn't always completely bad, especially if they're going to take traits from, say, Armada Starscream and combine that with some of his other personality aspects from different series. You can really make an interesting character out of Starscream, and he also has the benefit of being a largely comical character. Now, if they were going to do this, it may be controversial in the community, because there is a good amount of fans who really don't like Starscream, get kind of annoyed by him. Personally, I'm a big fan of Starscream, always been one of my favorite Transformers characters, so I would like to see it, and I think there is kind of a chance of it. Plus, if they were to focus it on Starscream as opposed to a character like Bumblebee, they could help differentiate it from the current cinematic universe, because Starscream, for one thing, is dead in Bayformers, and also I'm guessing if they were going to do a reboot universe, Starscream would look much more like his original or traditional counterpart. so I think Starscream's definitely an option. Some other ones off the top of my head, like any Beast Wars character I don't think would really work, because they work best as a group unit, whether it's Predacons or Maximals, and I think that could be said for a lot of the other series. If they're something like the original Robots in Disguise or Transformers Energon, they probably don't have good enough characters altogether, so at a glance your options still seem kind of limited. I'm sure if you were to look into the comics though, you could probably find a lot more possibilities. One of the best ones, though it wouldn't be a single character spotlight, would be sort of a Last Stand of the Wreckers one. I'm guessing they would probably focus on one character of the group in particular, but, you know, still have it as a group thing. Now, Last Stand of the Wreckers is considered a kind of darker story, so they may be hesitant to do that for a Transformers movie, but I think those boundaries are really being broken, so it might be a possibility to see something such as Last Stand of the Wreckers. But to wrap this up, I think we should bet on any spin-off, character-focused film taking place in the current cinematic universe. Even if it is going to be a reboot, I think it's most likely that for Reboot or Bayformers we'll get something that is a prequel film, either focusing on Bumblebee or an Optimus and Megatron prequel film. In either case, I think it could be kind of cool. Maybe not the most exciting thing, something we've heard a lot before, but seeing it on the big screen would be pretty exciting. Anyways, those are just my thoughts on it. You guys can leave yours in the comment section below. Which character do you think is most likely to get their own spin-off film? Do you think these spin-off films would take place in a rebooted universe or the current cinematic universe? Or maybe you don't like the idea at all of character-based spin-off films and would rather just have something more like traditional Transformers. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, along with any topic suggestions you have for Transformers 5 or the spin-off films, Combiner Wars, Robots in Disguise, whatever it might be. That's all I have for this one. Stay tuned for more Transformers news and commentary. Thanks for watching, and have a good one, guys.